And welcome back, everyone, to Double Down with Breslo, the show that covers everything in the sports betting industry with some of the industry's leading experts. And we have another one for you today. This guy's been around a long time in the space, so a genuine expert on internet gaming and sports wagering. It's Seth Young. Currently, he is the founding partner of FSG Digital. That's got a really interesting project. A new sports betting site aimed at the Spanish-speaking community. Sounds like a great niche. And also partner at GMA Consulting, providing consulting to the gaming industry. And also an old friend. Seth, thanks for coming on the show. Good seeing you, buddy.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. You flatter me with a good intro.
So I've got a ton of things to cover with you. So we'll try to get through them all in our half-hour show. But let's start with talking about this. It's, I hate when I see ideas and I think that I didn't think of it first, because I'm the master of coming up with tons of great ideas that I never execute on. And then eventually they happen and I get to point that cocktails in a can, by the way, Seth, that was me. Cocktails in a can. And sure enough, that, then it comes. So, but a sports betting site directed at Spanish speaking in the US, I presume is the idea, is brilliant. And I have to admit, I hadn't thought about it. So tell me about that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, the reason it exists is because nobody really thought about it. It's shocking when you have 64 million people in the United States that identify as Latino and 12 million of whom speak Spanish as their first language. And there's nothing in the gambling market focused towards them or catering to the community. So that business, it's FSG Digital, which I co-founded with Seth Shore and Jeffrey Fine, who are two of the owners at Fifth Street Gaming. That business was founded as kind of an extension of Fifth Street Gaming in some way, right? So Fifth Street Gaming owns and operates casinos in Las Vegas. Two of those casinos in particular are in North Las Vegas, in the heart of the Latino community in that city. So one of them was known as the Lucky Club. It was recently gut renovated. It's gorgeous. I was just there a couple of weeks ago. It's called Ojos Locos Sports Cantina y Casino at Hotel Jefe. For 15 years.
That's a mouthful.
It sure is, but it's it's an unbelievable property. Ojos Locos is people call it affectionately the Mexican Hooters, and the property itself still has a very strong Latino clientele. 15 years ago, Seth Shore and Jeff Fine founded that business and been catering to that community in North Las Vegas for that time. And the Silver Nugget, which is way up on North Las Vegas Boulevard, kind of by City Hall, has an event center now called the Jefebet Event Center, which caters to the Latino community and has events, cultural events, whether it's music or food truck rallies or wrestling, things like that. So we wanted to bring it deeper and go on the internet. And so that's why Jefebet was born. We started as a media brand more than anything else. A lot of things in the gaming industry are commoditized, but one thing that isn't a commodity is an audience. So we set out to build an audience and then build some things behind that. So long story short, fast forward from our launch of March last year at jefebet.com, we have a team of roughly 40 now across LATAM and the United States. We're creating between 1,000 and 1,500 proprietary written articles on a monthly basis, and really are driving a tremendous amount of sustainable traffic. So now today, with our strategic investors, and we have a fantastic cap table, we're launching real money sportsbook and casino in select Latin American jurisdictions where we have strong traffic. And in the US, we're focusing on a sweepstakes play, which is really quite interesting to supplement our affiliate business. So very, very excited about that business. And frankly, we're the only ones doing it. We're the only business of our kind in this market. So
sweepstakes related to sports? Related to
casino and more online gaming, more similar to social gaming than anything else. It's just a different set of law, different nuance. As relates to the U.S. market.
Yeah, but no, I'm extremely familiar with sweepstakes gaming. My old company did a lot of it. And speaking of all my brilliant ideas, I've always been thinking about how you could combine sweepstakes with sports betting in a way that could possibly be legal. I mean, is there any element of that to where you guys are heading, or?
We're not doing that for sports. There is a company, called Fliff in the United States that has an interesting model like that, and they've been finding some success from what I understand. I'm also invested in a business called Ultimate Odds, which has a light sweepstakes element. It's kind of like a fantasy sports book product. Super interesting, novel concept, run by a guy named Jonathan Bierig, and some friends and I put a little bit of cash into that. Basically, you draft bets instead of players, and you can win prizes, real money prizes with a real money entry based on the parlay math that your bets add up to. So say, for example, you have 7 active bets on your active roster. Jim, you and I are playing against one another. I might have Jags money line one week. You might have 49ers money line, and then 6 other bets. If my Jags money line hits and then 2 or 3 other hits, it'll add up what that would have been from a parlay perspective. And if I'm plus 2,000 and you're like plus 1,500, my odds were longer, which means I win the contest. And so it's an interesting way to learn about how to bet on parlays and generally get introduced to sports.
And that does sound like a cool model. It's like fantasy, except based on teams, right? But right, because you're not betting, but you're picking the games as opposed to players.
Yeah, so you're out. The outcome of the game isn't determined by the success of a wager so much as the outcome of the game is determined by the parlay odds that you would basically have by winning 1, 2, 4, or 5 of those bets within your roster. So super interesting. Nobody's done anything like that. I think the game is awesome. The app is pretty intuitive too.
Interesting. Just to stay on that for a second, because again, you're saying this is a sweepstakes model.
There is some sweepstakes element to it. Yeah, I encourage you to check out the app for sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because sweepstakes, I think, is supposed to not, everybody's got an equal chance, and it's supposed to be based on chance. I think for people who aren't overly familiar with sweepstakes, just the basics of it, as you obviously know, is that it's the soda. It's the bottle of Pepsi that you open up the top, and underneath the cap, you have a chance to win a prize. You're buying a product, and ancillary to the product is a chance to win a prize. But there has to be a real product, and then you have to have alternative means of entering and all that kind of stuff. But that's in a nutshell what sweepstakes is. But so going back to Hefe, what is the actual website? Hefe Sports?
Yeah, it's hefebet.com globally.
Hefe Bet.
Yeah, and we'll have different platforms for our different products that we're shortly introducing.
So is the objective for Hefe Bet to be something that people in the US can go and place their bets on?
In a manner of speaking, it's not necessarily a bet if it's a sweepstakes platform, right? So we'll have a free-to-play version of games, still work in progress. So in Latin America, we'll have a real money product with casino and sports betting under license out of Malta, and in under federal license in jurisdictions where we may apply for one and receive one. The United States will be a sweepstakes value proposition. So technically, it's not a bet or a wager, but there is a real money value proposition in the sense that you can play games and potentially win real prizes depending on the structure. So it won't be for sports for us, but it will be closer to casino games and free to play social games that you may be aware of in the market today.
Is one of the thinkings that it's just so darn competitive out there as far as the sports wagering sites and the amount of money that they're spending, that trying to wade into those waters is just too expensive?
It's a good question. I think market access deals are definitely changing with the consolidation in the industry. A couple of years ago, it was an arms race to try to get into every market that you could, make deals with the license holders, whether land-based casinos or racetracks or going directly in a limited license environment. But the life cycle of this particular business, we're just not big enough to come in and try to compete with the incumbents, even though we have an interesting value proposition in Spanish. So the sweepstakes mechanics and the way that this works allows us to go and build a brand and access a lot more markets in let's call it not a regulated casino environment, because it's sweepstakes is not regulated gambling by any means. So we can still go out and engage prospective consumers in our target markets where we tend to have a lot of traffic, whether that's California or Florida or New York or Texas or Georgia. And all of those markets have their own nuance as it relates to sweepstakes. But for us, those are places where Latinos will over-index as a percentage of the population, and a natural way for us to engage our target audience.
What do you see that's going on at the big boys, MGM, DraftKings, FanDuel, et cetera, when it comes to appealing to Spanish speakers in the US?
Not a whole lot, Jim. I know that, look, it's table stakes to just translate an app into Spanish. And right now, PointsBet, a great company, has a Spanish language app. Bet365 has a Spanish language app. I'm of the understanding that some of the larger groups are looking to put out an app in Spanish, but it's not enough just to put out an app in Spanish and call it a day. We really had to focus on authenticity when it came to introducing content and engaging our target audience. And that's done by focusing on the sports and the value propositions that and the games and things that the audience is interested in. It's not always the same as all other cohorts in the market. It really is led by soccer and boxing, and other sports kind of take a back seat, whereas we may be more focused on football or basketball in mainstream. It really is a little bit different. So, I'm hoping that the major groups will lean into it. And for now, we've got a great and growing audience that we can be a great partner for those books in the supporting economy for.
I didn't hear a lot of Latin sounding names in those founders. What the heck do you guys know about the Hispanic community?
That's a fair question. Look, I do speak Spanish, which is helpful. And as I mentioned, while I'm not Latino, Seth Shore and Jeffrey Fine are not Latino. For 15 years, they have been serving the Latino audience. And Ojos Locos today and the Lucky Club before, frankly, it's the only casino in the country that's singularly focused towards the Latino audience. There is nobody else doing this at all, period, full stop. So despite the fact that we are not Latino, we do have a tremendous amount of experience just providing entertainment to the audience, and staff in the Ojos Locos property, is Latino. We have Latino leadership across the board, and in FSG Digital in particular, where we're running Jefe Bet, the vast majority of our team is based in Latin America. So despite the fact that the co-founders are not Latino, we are certainly leaning into the market in all ways.
And the Vegas property, is that designed mostly for locals or for tourists?
It's very much a locals property, but to be honest, I mean, it's becoming a little bit more of a destination. Ojos Locos is fun. The layout of this property is a little bit different than any casino that I've really seen. We've a couple hundred TVs, a beautiful sports bar and restaurant serving good Mexican cuisine. And it's really centered around the bar and the restaurant. There's a club and like patio being built outside. The slot machine's kind of around this. So it's almost like a restaurant lounge bar first and casino second, but it's all blended. It's just a very interesting property. And if you're in Vegas, I encourage you to see it. I think I would venture to say, 5-10 years ago, it wouldn't be a place that you're really going to Vegas and traveling to, but now there's merit to that. It really is nice.
That's really interesting. Is it similar to anything on the Strip that you could compare it to as far as how it's laid out?
I don't think it's similar to anything that I've seen in the United States, frankly. It is very much a first of its kind property.
And then they also have the Grand, which, correct? Fifth Street Gaming has the Grand downtown on Fremont Street.
Absolutely.
Now, is the Grand the brand new one that's got the huge outdoor TVs by the pool, or have I got the wrong one?
The Grand's been around for a bit. There's some beautiful renovated rooms in the gallery tower. The pool is really, really popular. It's just off of Fremont Street. The casino itself is nice. I love that property. I stay there when I'm in Vegas. They have great restaurants across the street. Hogs and Heifers is right there.
How's their sports book?
Sportsbook is brand new, just opened. So yeah, it's a nice little locals property from that one.
What is the one that I'm thinking of that's got the huge screens by the pool?
You may be thinking of Circa.
Circa. Okay. I know you don't want to have to mention the competition, but
it's a great property too, right? So I've been there also. It's
it's all good for everybody. It's all good for everybody else. I mean, the more renovation there is to downtown is just going to help every one of those hotels, because the whole point of the Strip, nobody wants to stay just at their hotel. They like being on the Strip and checking out the other places. And at downtown, same thing. The better the place is, the better for everybody.
Vegas is Vegas. Every place has its own charm. Whether it's downtown Grand, the Circa, the Bellagio, the Wynn, all very, very different properties, different strokes for different fun.
All right, well, let's dig into sports betting a bit more, and the recent online expansion that we've been covering on the show. We still got big markets to go, like Florida, Texas, and California still haven't happened. But just share with us, kind of your high level observations of sports betting in the US, where it is today and what you think the future looks like?
That's a big question, Mr. Breslow. It's a fantastic and growing and large industry that is going to be very different in 5 years and was very different 5 years ago. Sort of given up predicting the future, other than to say, I'm expecting a tremendous amount of consolidation in the market. I know I'm on record a couple of years ago saying that be a ton of carcasses on the side of the road when it was all said and done. All of the groups that were in the market from day one will not necessarily be the same groups that are in the market on day 3,000, right? So you have now land-based groups with really strong multi-jurisdictional property profiles, great loyalty programs that are starting to gain a tremendous and retain a tremendous amount of market share vis-a-vis the pure online brands that came out of the gate super hard. So at the top you have groups like DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, Caesars, Barstool, PointsBet. All really good companies. You have Fanatics entering the market, who are a big wild card with a tremendous amount of capital, great leadership team, by all accounts, what we hope is a good product and really interesting assets behind it. Every group has a different value proposition in the market, and not all groups are created equal from a tech perspective. I would wager that, DraftKings, FanDuel, PointsBet, without bias, by the way, given my background with PointsBet, those three companies have by far the best apps in the game. Everybody else is sort of a tier below, and it takes a while to catch up. So, for my money, that's where I would play if I wanted an experience that was fast and easy and super intuitive from a tech perspective. But the market itself, look, legal in dozens of states now, with iGaming likely following in a lot of them, although that's been a slower rollout. You have different kinds of tax structures and overarching governance structures in all states. I mean, they're all very different. Some are lottery monopolies, some are just monopolies, some are artificially constricted markets that have limited licenses available. Some have open licensing, like Tennessee, which is its own very interesting market, just passed new rules and a handle tax. So it kind of runs the gamut. I guess what is most interesting to me today is how the market is evolving. I think we're entering chapter 2 of the market. Chapter 1 was who's interested, land grab, customer acquisition wars to create an anchor in every state. And now that's sort of, I don't want to say normalized, but it's gotten to a point where you see who the clear winners and losers are going to be. You see who the groups are that really have a chance of going in the direction of being a winner. And you see the groups that are just not leaning into sports at all and kind of waiting for casino. And it's becoming a bit more clear about what's going to happen next in the market, at least from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you've told people which ones they should probably play on. I think people are also going to want to know which ones they should play on the Charles Schwab account. So we're going to want one recommendation for you on that after the break. We'll make people listen to some commercials first. We'll be back soon with Seth Young on Double Down.
Hi everyone, I'm Veronica Dudo, and welcome to Buy,
Hold, Sell. If you have the Russians that are going into Ukraine, the Americans and the Germans and everyone else in Europe is going to say, hell no.
If Russia doing things, logically was their MO, I'd agree with you. Yeah, Todd, why don't you get him on a phone call right now? Hello, you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Double Down. We are talking to Seth Young. He's the founder of SSG Digital. He's got a new product out there, jefebet.com, direct to the Latino market. Also, founder of GMA consulting in the gaming industry. Before we move on to other subjects, though, I promised one tip. As you look at the companies out there, in sports wagering in general, and I know there's not a lot of pure sports betting plays when it comes to buying a stock, but are there any companies out there that you really like?
So I'm not giving investment advice or anything like that.
You've made that disclaimer. Okay, now you can go ahead and give the advice.
There are a lot of companies that I really like, and I think look, for me, I look at the market and it kind of looks like everything is on sale. The markets have really bottomed out, particularly as it relates to the gambling industry. What I continue to lean back on, it depends on your investment horizon, right? these businesses, whether it's sportsbook or casino or B2B companies serving the markets, the underlying business models have long proven to be profitable. It's not speculative in that sense. It is speculative in some sense that you have to pick the winners and losers as you see it. But those that, can show the ability to make a profit in the industry and are able to show the ability to launch in new markets and obtain licensure in jurisdictions that they wish to enter, they should be the winners. And I would remind the audience that you don't have to have 50% market share to have a tremendously large business in this gambling industry. The brick and mortar side of the business, retail casinos, whether it's commercial or tribal, it's $85 billion a year. And most analysts suggest that the sports betting and iGaming industry together will be about $55 billion annually from a revenue opportunity perspective at maturity, which means that if you're a player with 5% market share at maturity, you've got a $250 million top line revenue business. And if your bottom line is 20%, you've got a $50 million EBITDA business. So you could do the math on valuations and multiples there and see what is, what's valued appropriately, what isn't. I'm just in a lot of stuff, frankly.
Yeah. What about Flutter in particular, which owns FanDuel? You like that one?
Flutter, people would ask me, us really all the time. When I was at PointsBet, we took the company public, went on the IPO roadshow, and the question was, who do you view as your biggest competition in the market? And FanDuel was always the number one answer. Flutter is, I think, for most people, the best operator in the world as it relates to sports betting. They really know what they're doing. Great tech, great product, tremendous team with tremendous acumen, really good at marketing, clearly have shown an ability to gain and retain market share. That's a great company as far as I'm concerned.
So tell everybody real quick about PointsBet, because that's where you were formerly, and it's a really unique model and a unique company because it comes out of Australia, right?
Yeah, PointsBet was born out of Australia. Andy Fay, Nick Fay, two brothers, and Sam Swanell were the three co-founders of it, alongside really a guy named Brett Payton, who was the main financier at the time for the business and still the chairman of the board. So PointsBet, I loved this business, and I joined very early when I met the founding team. They just saw the world the same way as I did, and if I was to do something myself, I would have basically done it the same way as the PointsBet guys. And really, sports-led, sportsbook first. It does have a casino product in jurisdictions where online casino is legal, which is doing well. But the main feature that differentiates PointsBet from the others, besides having what I think is a market-leading app, without bias, I don't take it with a grain of salt, all the things, but the app is tremendously fast, really good customer service. There's points betting, which you may know as lightning betting in the black or gray markets prior to the legalization of sports betting across the country, and that's spread betting, right? So you can take the over/under on LeBron James points. Let's say his line is 20 points, and you say, I want to points bet on the over, and he goes to 35 points, and you have $1 on it, right? You're going to make 15x your dollar wager, because it went over by 15. If it goes under by 3 and to 17, you're going to lose 3x your wager. So in this case, if you bet $1 and he hits 35, you make $15. If he hits 17, you make $3. And there are really, really volatile markets that you can bet on that make this a very swingy, very fun, very sweaty product, right? So tons of derivative markets that just have, you can have volatility in the 1000x range, but you can cap out your risk, both ways, whether it's downside protection or upside cap based on your risk tolerance.
What's one of the more volatile bets that you could make?
You could do a points betting market with LeBron's points multiplied by Draymond Green's rebounds multiplied by Steph Curry's amount of 3-point shots that Steph Curry hits in the game, and that creates a market of X versus X, and you pick an over and an under, and it could be just very large numbers that have the ability to multiply way beyond a 5x, 10x, and any bet like that, right? So or Patrick Mahomes' passing yards multiplied by Tom Brady's passing yards in a game. And those are big numbers. You could have 50 times 300. And if the line is 4,000, well, then you've made 2,000x, or something like that.
And then of course, in a regular NFL football game, you can do it, right?
Sure. And then
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to bet on PointsBet. And that's one of the was historically and still is one of the main selling points of PointsBet is the just sheer amount of betting opportunities and the derivative markets outside of the straight, pre-match wagers or in-game wagers that are traditional and you'll find kind of everywhere. This has it all, frankly.
So just to take an NFL game, for instance, teams favored by 7 points, you still have a line like that, right? And then everything is about how many points you beat the line by or how much you lost by.
Yeah, and there was an NFL example. There was I think it was a Ravens-Dolphins game a couple of years ago, and the Ravens won something like 47-10. The line maybe was -7 from a Ravens perspective. And we had a guy, a big client who put a fair amount of money on the spread and ended up winning something like 32 or 42 times that massive bet. And it was a big bet, right? And I think it was the Ravens that set a single game record for their franchise from a scoring perspective. It was just a perfect storm for that guy. So yeah, it was, if it was 49, then it was 42x. He made 42 times his bet. So if he bet 100K, he made $4.2 million for it.
Just out of curiosity, if I take a team, an underdog, so I'm taking them +10 and they end up winning the game by a point. Okay. So that's a big upset. They won it by a point. But still it's just treated as 11 points, right?
Yeah.
I beat the spread by 11 points. So if I had bet on the favorite -10 and they won by 21, which seems to me kind of more likely, frankly, but maybe not. Same amount of winnings, essentially. You beat the spread by 11, either direction.
Yeah, exactly that. But in that scenario, if you had bet the favorite -10 and they lost, then you would have -11. So
Right.
your $10, for example, would be -110.
Right.
And you'd have that in your account to cover, and that's what you'd lose.
Yeah. So I hadn't even heard of the concept before. You're the first one who told me about PointsBet, and I didn't know there was something called lightning betting, but that's what another name for the same thing.
Yeah, spread betting, lightning betting, but in the US, really it is known as points betting because PointsBet is the only regulated legal book to offer it.
So lightning betting in the US, was it available anywhere before PointsBet?
In the black market, just like all sports betting was. Black market's still pretty easy to access, without a tremendous amount of enforcement, but mostly just the black market.
And has there been anybody copying yet on the legal side of PointsBet?
I've seen.
Huh?
Not that I've seen.
And I mean, it's not that difficult to do, is it? Or is there a real trick to it?
It's tremendously difficult to do. If you don't know how to trade this, you can really get skinned as an operator. It's a volatile product. So if your lines are off by any means, or you just don't have good trading acumen, or you're outsourcing your trading to groups that are just not an expert in this space, it can be quite damaging if you just don't do it right. So look, PointsBet was born out of just tremendous acumen from a trading and risk management perspective. It's a sports-led brand with really, really strong trading. So
they had already been doing points betting in Australia.
How the business started. It was the first product was points betting.
And for PointsBet customers, approximately what percentage are doing? Because I assume they offer regular betting also.
Yeah, PointsBet offers everything. They also offer this, right? So
right.
You wanted to do points betting in the United States, and you also wanted to bet on sports. So this is the only, traditionally, as you would put it, this is the only place where you can do it.
So of the people that are on it for PointsBet, are the vast majority though doing the points betting element?
I couldn't give you any numbers, unfortunately. I'm just I haven't been I suppose instrumental in PointsBet's growth in the United States. It's been a couple of years since I've been in the business. I left in July 21 to pursue the other initiatives that we talked about, like HefeBet or some of the investments, things like that.
And right now it is trading in the US, PointsBet?
Yeah, so PointsBet is public on the Australian Stock Exchange. We do have a US listing. Tremendous.
Interesting. Let's talk about, you've mentioned a couple times now, online sports betting versus online casino. And I think a lot of people don't realize how significant online casino could potentially be. You don't hear that much about it. Everything you hear about is sports betting online, but betting on all types of casino games, primarily being virtual slot machines, right, is probably coming also. And it probably would dwarf sports betting, wouldn't it, as far as revenue?
Yeah, for sure. You nailed it, man. So it's most analysts suggest that the iGaming market at maturity is worth about $30 billion from a revenue perspective annually, while sports betting is pinned at, say, $25 billion annually. I have my own projections. I would contend the iGaming market is actually quite a bit larger than the 30 billion number, particularly because when you introduce convenience gaming, while there is no evidence to suggest that it cannibalizes retail gaming, in fact, quite the opposite, it ends up augmenting retail gaming. You look at any jurisdiction that has legal online gambling, that is casino and retail casinos, it's kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats. The revenue just goes up and up and up. Over 20 years, I don't know what happens, but from a convenience gaming perspective, I would imagine at some point that $85 billion a year market starts channelizing a little bit into the online casino space. It is really important. And we saw this during COVID, right? When you had retail casinos shut down, those that had an interactive profile actually had a backstop to mitigate their downside loss of having their properties closed across the country. From a taxable revenue perspective, states will do well by introducing iGaming. It just meets people where they are, same as shopping online with Amazon or streaming with Netflix. When you meet people where they are, it tends to be successful. And from a tech perspective, every company has solved all of the pain points that legislators, 5-7 years ago would whinge about when they said, what about the kids? How do you solve consumer protection? How do you solve for geolocation? Tech is really advanced. This is not even a conversation anymore. It's more politicized at the moment. And if it's not introduced in the state, it's not because you can't run it effectively. It's for other reasons. So it's a huge market. And you're seeing in the states where sports betting and online casino are run together, that companies tend to be more successful. They can drive a profit. Sports betting is a low margin business, whereas online casino is a lot more predictable in some ways. They're both predictable in some way, right? But online casino is higher margin, and it is just, I guess, better for an operator. Having those two entertainment products together is just a recipe for success, not just for the state, but for an operator and really for the citizens that don't have to go into the black market and play without any semblance of consumer protection. So all in all, it's just a win all around.
Why was Sheldon Adelson so famously opposed to online gaming, considering what you're saying as far as it being complementary?
Unfortunately, he passed, and he was a giant of a man in the gambling industry. I couldn't possibly give you an answer so much as, you listen to guys like Andy Aboud, who was his longtime mouthpiece for this at iGaming conferences, where they would show up at from time to time and argue with the proponents of iGaming. If you had to guess, you'd say, look at their land-based holdings and how they make their own money. And a lot of people look at iGaming as a threat to land-based casinos. I wouldn't be in that camp. I think it's wholly incremental in all ways. I think if you don't have an iGaming profile and you're a casino, you're doing it wrong in this day and age. But for them, they were really late to the game. There are rumors, here and there about why a guy like Sheldon Adelson may have been so staunchly opposed to it, and it didn't really have to do with business so much as it was personal. But they're rumors, and it's not for me to repeat. So it's hard to say, man.
Yeah. So bottom line, though, they never did anything in that space.
So the last couple of years, they had an investment arm that was deploying capital into the supporting economy and in some cases directly into the economy. But that fund has been wound down. And they do have an interactive profile with some businesses that they purchased that are currently still working within the company. But they haven't really come out and, I guess, launched at scale yet. So I personally am watching to see what they do. There's some really, really talented people in that organization putting for some product forward. But no, they don't have a B2C operation. They do have like light interactive in Macau, so to speak, with iPads to deal with customer overflow, but that's about it.
Yeah. And the interesting development now is they don't even have Venetian and Palazzo anymore, right? They're just in Macau, and they've sold off their Vegas properties.
I think they sold off the real estate. To be honest, I'm outside of my depth on that one. I'd have to look. There's so many things that happen all the time in the gaming business. I want to answer you incorrectly, but I think you're right.
And then to wrap up on iCasinos, remind me or tell our viewers, how many states have approved that?
Oh gosh, I think it's 7 now. If we go down the list, and they're all a little bit different. So Delaware has a lottery monopoly that's been with 888 for a while. They've just put out an RFP potentially to get a new vendor. New Jersey was the first state to have iGaming, launched in 2013, really paved the way for it. You have Nevada with some semblance of iGaming, kind of not really. You don't really think of Nevada as an iGaming state, but they have online poker. You have Pennsylvania, which is iGaming.
Is there any of them? Sorry, Seth. Is there any of them that pretty much just allows everything? Any state that? Yeah.
New Jersey allows iGaming. Michigan allows iGaming and sports betting. Pennsylvania, so the same. The states that operators can't access without a monopoly are Delaware and my goodness, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Connecticut has a duopoly with Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods mesh.
So in some of those states that really are wide open on casino online gaming, I presume revenue from that is higher than the sports.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like at the casinos where, they always say the sports books are a loss leader essentially at casinos.
Yes and no. So there's some groups that are obviously, really taking advantage of the revenue opportunity as it relates to sports betting. And there are some groups that look at sports betting as an amenity. But more broadly, take a step back, look at the entire interactive ecosystem going back to, 20 years ago in Europe. All of the biggest companies that grew out of Europe, and really some of them that are in the US now, born from that, everybody started out as a sports book. Sports just touches every part of culture in every country. It's just, entangled, intertwined in day-to-day life everywhere. So it's always the first touch point, usually the first touch point of customer acquisition. And then books will, ostensibly work to cross-sell those consumers to play in casino. So it's the widest part of a customer acquisition funnel. All the biggest casinos online, with very little exception, all started out as sports books.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we didn't get to the vast majority of subjects I wanted to get to, Seth, so you're going to have to agree to come on again. The half hour went very, very quickly, but what do you want to promote to people? Is it Hefe Bet for people to go check out?
Yeah, if I'm going to be self-serving in any way, shape, or form, Hefe Bet is awesome. We're putting out content every day. We have some great products coming out. It's still very much a startup, but it is growing so rapidly. GMA Consulting, where I'm involved, is a full-service hospitality firm. We work with some of the smallest startups and then some of the largest blue-chip clients in the space and everything in between. Involved with a couple of companies I really like EQL Games, which is a lottery game inventor and aggregator and supplier, launching shortly in Michigan with the online lottery. Connectify, a group that streamlines AML investigations for both land-based and online properties. ClearStake, a group that does affordability checks. Kindbridge, a group that treats responsible gambling through a telehealth platform. So many interesting companies in the ecosystem. There's so much opportunity in the space. There are a tremendous amount of exciting things we can talk about, Jim.
Well, we'll definitely do it again. And just check out Seth Young on LinkedIn, and you'll see 1,000 different companies the guy's involved in. So you're obviously a busy man and need to go get to it. We'll let you go. All right, buddy. Thanks so much for joining, and thank everyone for watching and listening to Double Down. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Take care.
I want you to smash that like button.